Dozens of local organizations are calling on Portland Public Schools to move more quickly on a plan to build a center for Black student excellence.
It's been 5 full years since the school district received $60 million in taxpayer funds to build that center. Since then, there's been very little progress to make it happen.
After the death of George Floyd in the year 2020 and the subsequent Black Lives Matter riots, we saw a bunch of different states and cities decide that they were going to pass a bunch of ridiculous initiatives in order to forward the cause allegedly titled racial justice. Now, of course, the one that gets the most amount of attention is the defund the police movement, where you had a bunch of different local municipalities trim back the budgets of their police department, cancel recruiting classes, and this ultimately ended up leading to one of the greatest increases in crime from a year-over-year basis in our entire country. We also had, and we focused on this channel, a bunch of different woke prosecutors that were elected to not prosecute anyone for anything, and this, of course, led to subsequent terrible results. However, in the city of Portland, one of our liberal meccas in this great nation, they decided that they were going to put forward a ballot initiative, the white guilt ballot initiative, that required an appropriation of $60 million from Portland Public Schools budget in order to build a Black student center entitled the Center for Black Excellence. Now, 5 years later, there's a lot of complaints from these Black organizations like the NAACP and others in the fact that they haven't made any progress on this, but I'm going to detail to you guys out there in the audience why it's absolutely insane that this passed in the first place and how disastrous this will be for Portland Public Schools, which, spoiler alert, is facing a significant budget deficit. Now, we are going to get into this. We are going to break this down, but before we do, I want to thank everybody who supports this channel via actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
Give me the money. Give me the money, okay?
Yeah, well, Drew, in China, more than 35 nonprofits in a letter to Portland Public Schools is asking the school district to have clear guidelines for when checkpoints will be reached. These are nonprofits including the Black Excellence League of Portland and the Urban League, the NAACP, all nonprofit groups in our area. Now, by May 20th, these groups, a coalition as they say, want a public presentation detailing when a site will be chosen for the Center for Black Student Excellence. By December, they want the district to purchase that site. And this is all revolving around a project that's made little progress over the past 5 years.
So first of all, right off the top, I just want to say to this local news reporter, the word you're looking for is chosen. When a site will be chosen for this particular center, not chosen, and considering only around 50% of Portland public school students are proficient in reading, and this is a drop from pre-pandemic levels, it seems like that you were negatively impacted by the public education system in your particular area. So the idea that we would spend $60 million building this Black Center for Student Excellence when we have problems in the public school system in the first place seems to me like it's a waste of money. We have local news reporters who can't even understand what words actually go where, and obviously that is an indication of educational folly. Now, of course, you see all these different organizations, 35 in total, that want a piece of this action, want a piece of this $60 million that, again, is being appropriated just for the Black students in Portland schools. So I think it's important for you guys to understand how many Black students there actually are and how many Black people there are in the city of Portland, considering that there's 35 nonprofits that are advocating for this specific project. So I did a little lookup on Google.com of the Black population of Portland, and what I ultimately ended up discovering is that their total Black population is something like 35,000 people. 37,502 to be exact, and they've appropriated $60 million in order to build this center for Black student excellence in order to pander to this small portion of Portland's population. And I believe it's around 4 or 5% of the total city population. But of course, that is not reflective of the public school students in the city of Portland. And by the way, its entire population in terms of public school students is around 44,000. 8% of those students happen to be Black. So that gives us a number in and around 3,520 students.
It was part of the 2020 bond measure, and Portland Public asked taxpayers for $60 million to build this Center for Black Student Excellence. It's intended to be a place where kids, especially young Black children, can grow and make the district a little bit more equitable. But since receiving taxpayer money 5 years ago, little progress has been made.
So in 2020, in the height of the Black Lives Matter hysteria, when you had Antifa rioting for 100 days consecutively in the city of Portland, they decided that they were going to vote on a ballot initiative in order to build this white guilt center with Portland public school tax dollars to the tune of $60 million when their black student population is only 3,520 students. And when, by the way, you divide up that $60 million among those 3,520 students, you arrive at a number of $17,000 basically per pupil in terms of who you're spending this on. And this is at the expense of the Portland public school system as a whole. Now, of course, I decided to get even more into the weeds in terms of the numbers, and I ultimately ended up discovering that $17,000 is in and around what Portland public schools spends per pupil. So essentially, black pupils in Portland's public school system with this center will be appropriated $34,000 in terms of per pupil spending if this center actually gets built. However, there are some challenges that are being faced by this particular project, and we hear throughout this local news segment about the anger from these nonprofits related to those challenges. So I'm going to play that for you in just a little bit, and then I'm going to explain to you how disconnected from reality this actually is, because there's much more serious challenges in the Portland public school system.
It's still unclear where the center will be located and how much it'll cost to run. In the letter, the coalition writes, "This is not only a matter of justice for our children. Fulfilling the district's promises made to Portland students, families, educators, and taxpayers is a matter of public trust and governmental accountability."
So, of course, they're saying that by the end of this year, they demand that they pick a site, they end up starting construction. Of course, we're probably going to hear about how this needs to be built by a black construction firm, and it's not a matter of, fulfilling a regular, ordinary promise. This is a matter of justice. We need justice for the black students in the city of Portland, because I don't know if you guys are aware of this. I don't know if you guys are confused by this fact. Portland, even though it is in the Northwest, in reality, was actually the capital of the Confederacy in these people's minds. Therefore, these 3,500 black students are entitled to reparations, according to these left-wing progressives. Now, of course, they talk to the head of the Portland Public Schools. They get a statement from him. He has to bend the knee and apologize for not moving forward on this particular project. But again, the cherry on top of all of this will be presented to you a little bit later, so you definitely want to stay tuned, because it really contextualizes the ridiculousness of this particular project.
In March, we spoke to Portland Public Board Chair Eddie Wong. He says COVID, a teacher strike, and a change in superintendents delayed this project. Building materials are more expensive too. Still, families who have long supported this initiative are growing increasingly frustrated.
Let's be honest. I wish there was more progress made. The longer we wait, the more expensive things get.
It's not moving as quickly as we would hope.
Now, Portland Public Schools says this is changing under new Superintendent Kimberly Armstrong. They say this initiative is at the forefront of what they're trying to accomplish here. Still, this coalition, in its letter that it gave to the school district, is demanding immediate action.
So yeah, they had a bunch of issues in Portland education that have delayed the projects, and of course they're worried that building materials have gone up in price over time, obviously due to a bunch of different things, including inflation. So they're very, very upset that this hasn't moved forward. But I just want to point out that Portland is one of those cities that did the lockdowns. They ended up booting the kids out of school. So of course you have a lower test scores as a consequence of that. In addition to that, they let these Antifa people riot for 100 straight days during the Black Lives Matter riots, and the increase in crime in the city of Portland, plus the increase in the cost of living, has caused it to be a city among cities in the United States of America that are decreasing in population. And by the way, they're also decreasing in young people in terms of their population, so there's less students in the Portland public schools in order to support this particular project. But in addition to that, a couple of months ago, this very same local news agency reported that Portland Public Schools specifically has a $40 million budget deficit.
In just a few hours here, Portland Public School leaders will detail the plans to tackle a $40 million deficit.
Yeah, guys, this budget crunch has actually been looming for a while now, dating back to last year when Portland Public Schools slashed $30 million from its budget. As a result, 90 full-time licensed staff members lost their jobs. Now, for more than a year, Portland Public Schools and other school districts across Oregon have asked the state legislature for more school funding. And today, Superintendent Kimberly Armstrong is expected to outline exactly how the district plans to navigate budgetary concerns. She's also expected to talk about reaffirming commitments to literacy at a time when literacy test scores and reading test scores have been slumping statewide.
Yeah, you heard that right. So Portland Public Schools right now is running at a $40 million budget deficit. They also have lower reading scores across the entire state of Oregon, which, by the way, has budget deficits in a bunch of different school districts, so they're asking for a bailout from the state. Now, to be clear, this $60 million boondoggle for the Center for Black Student Excellence is not the only waste of time, misallocation of priorities and resources of the Portland public school system, because one of the things that we see throughout the course of this segment is a building for their headquarters, and they decided, of course, in the height of the Black Lives Matter hysteria, that that center needed to be renamed for the first black superintendent in the city of Portland for their public schools, and of course they did a giant virtue signaling program related to that and how woke and progressive they were for naming the center after a black person.
When families pass by the central office for Portland Public Schools or attend a school board meeting inside, they might recognize a different name now up on the sign. It's there to honor the life and legacy of Portland's first black superintendent.
From 1982 until 1992, Dr. Matthew Prophet served as the superintendent for Portland Public Schools. His son, Tony, and daughter, Michelle, say to him, it was much more than a job.
That's all he talked about. We would come and visit him, and he would drive us around on Saturdays, see all the different schools, and he loved his work. He was passionate about serving these kids and helping them realize their full potential.
Again, so stunning, so brave, so beautiful, so impressive. I hope all of you are impressed as well. And of course, they have a bunch of other problems that they're going through, including issues with safety that are being highlighted in this local news segment that they need to shore up.
Armstrong also expected to talk about rebuilding community trust and ensuring safe schools. Both of those have been hot topics in Portland Public for a couple of years now. Now, even with this budget deficit looming, Portland Public at the same time is gearing up to try to pass another bond measure. PPS looking to pass one worth $1.8 billion, and the district says the bond package will be filed later this week.
But despite all of these issues, despite the fact that they're running a massive deficit, they have decided that there needs to be a plan in place right now to blow $60 million on a black student center, a black excellence student center, in order to make this promise from 2020 during the hysteria of the Black Lives Matter riots to be valid. And again, they just can't afford it. You're going to go $100 million into the hole on this particular project, doubling plus an extra additional amount on your budget deficit that already exists while reading scores are failing. It's crazy. It's madness. This is what people talk about when they talk about white guilt hitting extreme levels, and no greater representation of this is the city of Portland, again, putting up $60 million in taxpayer funds at a moment in time when they already have a $40 million budget deficit in order to please 35 nonprofits that represent 3,500 students. That's it. That's the total of the students. It's crazy. It's madness. It's insanity, but that's what we would expect from the city of Portland. Now, of course, I'm going to leave this up to you guys out there in the audience. Do you think this student center is necessary? Do you think this is a ridiculous project? Do you think Portland education should actually focus on its damn students rather than virtue signaling to the rest of the country about how much they are the most down with the black students, with the black peoples in the city of Portland? All your thoughts down in the comments below. As per usual, if you like this video, show them by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on my social medias, support me via the support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about the city of Portland being forced into building something just for black students. Till next time.